Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands on Podfic. This will be the continuation of Little Acts of Kindness. This will be Part 33, Chapter 33, entitled Jim Zeta. Before him was a large circular building, a steel set of double doors closing the building to the outside world. Next to the main doors was another door, this one labeled Control and Observation. Above the door was a strange-looking symbol, like a 7, with a curved line at the bottom that trailed to the right, ending with a curved hook that went back to the left. Above the curved line was what seemed to be a chute leading inside the building. "This way, Midoriya. I'll let Kan-kun here demonstrate the gym for you so you have an idea of what to expect." The principal walked towards the labeled door, opening it and letting Izuku into the room. In it was a ton of monitors and a huge panel with buttons. One of the screens showed the front door and the symbol. Izuku could see Vlad King standing in front of the door. Nezu pressed a button and then spoke. "All right. The course is ready. On a medium difficulty, of course." The blood hero stepped forward, pulling the doors open and stepping in. Izuku immediately saw him appear on another camera. Before him was 2 paths, one on the left and one on the right. Izuku saw the hero carefully look at each one, and, after a moment, chose the left path. "I do say it's medium, but I won't be activating as many traps as I normally would. This is only a demonstration, after all," Nezu stated, rubbing his hands and hitting a button. Immediately Vlad jumped away, just as a splash of water landed where he had been standing moments prior. Vlad just continued forward, taking a right turn at the next juncture, and a gate slammed shut behind him, preventing him from backtracking. Before him stood a gate. The hero visibly grimaced and stepped to it. Nezu smiled and leaned towards the microphone. "I have no wallet, but I pay my way. I travel the world, but in the corner I stay. What am I? 10 seconds." The blood hero paused, thinking for a couple seconds before answering. "A stamp." Nezu pushed a button and the gate opened up. Further, the hero progressed, dodging most of the traps, though his suit got singed with flamethrowers at one point. The hero also answered the riddles correctly, though they had been getting closer and closer. Then the hero ran into what looked to be a person. Immediately, Vlad King took an attack stance. "Now, in this difficulty I allow the use of quirks, but the version you will be doing, you won't be allowed to use quirks." Spears of blood launched from the hero, spearing the dummy who had just released a gas. Vlad King covered his mouth, rushing past the gas. Soon he appeared to be on a long, straight path with the center in sight. Vlad rushed forward, jumping over pitfalls that opened up, sliding under a long metal blade that shot out, and just as he got to the end, the floor underneath him shot up, throwing him into the air, and as he was falling, a giant bat swung from the ceiling, sending the blood hero flying into another part of the maze. Izuku looked through the monitors until he found the teacher again. The man was clutching his stomach and limping painfully. Nezu cackled, one hand holding tea, and Izuku didn't know where it came from. The other was raised above a button. With another cackle and a bit of tea spilling out, the paw slammed down onto the button, and there was an audible rumble. The teacher's eyes widened, and he started running, expression twisting in pain. Soon Izuku saw a giant boulder rolling down the hallway, chasing after the hero. It was quickly gaining speed, mainly due to the fact that the floor was now obviously tilted, steeped for the boulder to catch up to the hero. Just as it was about to crush Vlad King, when Nezu pressed another button and a gate opened up, Vlad diving through it, and rolling before leaping up, looking around for something. The man took one step forward, only to be covered in slime. The blood hero's expression looked pissed as he wiped the slime out of his face. Vlad King's movements were fierce as he stomped forward. Reaching another barrier, only this time a gate appeared behind him, slowly moving forward, clearly intent on crushing him. "Get 3 riddles right to move on. Get 3 wrong and you're sent back to the beginning. You have 90 seconds. With that, Nezu proceeded to ask various riddles. Soon the blood hero was at 2v2, and the gate was almost upon him. Maybe about 10 seconds left. "You see a boat filled with people. It is not sunk, but when you look again you don't see a single person on the boat. Why?" The gate was almost on him, and so the hero answered, unable to take time to think. "They jumped off." Nezu pressed a loud buzzer, and the floor from underneath Vlad opened up. The monitor switched, showing the hero sliding down a chute, and then Izuku saw him spit out of the hole in the symbol. The teacher was back at the start. Izuku was surprised to find he had a small smile on his face. That this was amusing him. Why did he find this amusing? "Would you like to try again, Kan-kun?" Nezu asked, smiling. Izuku saw the monitor as the hero raised a middle finger and stalked off. covered in slime and suit burnt. He was kind of hoping the hero would go again. Soon his phone beeped, and Izuku looked at it, blinking when he saw it was an image of Lad King obviously taken from the monitor. "Show that to Aizawa-kun next time you see him. It'll amuse your teacher." "Okay," Izuku signed. "Now for you I will grant extra time since you have to sign your answers, and of course you're on the easiest level. Now, are you ready to try yourself?" Izuku gulped, but he didn't think he would be able to say no, so he nodded, regardless that he felt like running away. "Good. Now, I did you the favor of bringing your gym uniform over. It's in the corner," Nezu said, gesturing. Looking over, Izuku saw his gym uniform laid out on a small table. "Now, I understand humans are uncomfortable being unclothed in front of strangers, so just come out when you finish changing. Don't worry, I've turned the cameras off in this room as well." With that, the principal walked out of the room. Hoping that the principal wasn't lying about the cameras being off, he quickly changed into his gym uniform. He exited out of the room and stood in front of the double doors as Nezu returned to the control room. A minute later, and Nezu's voice echoed out from an unseen speaker. "Okay, just enter whenever you're ready." Izuku looked at the giant metal doors and slowly walked towards them. Pulling one open, he stepped into the first room of the maze. The door slammed shut behind him, a click signaling it had been locked. He was trapped with no way out other than to go through with this maze. Before him were 3 paths, different from Vlad King's 2. Izuku hesitantly looked through each of the gates, but saw no difference in any of them. Picking the center path, he started in. Turning right at the first turn and left at the second, he came across his first obstacle, one of the barriers with a question mark. It would be one of those timed riddles or questions that Nezu asked. Taking a deep breath, he stepped forward. "You always use me every day. You never notice me every day. If you hit me, it would do nothing. Without me, the world would go upside down. What am I?" Nezu questioned. 20 seconds. Thinking over the riddle, he came to his conclusion and signed the answer, fingerspelling as he didn't know the sign. "Oxygen." "Correct," Nezu said, and the gate slid open. Continuing forward, Izuku found the path he was on seemed to be curving slightly. He walked on, and after 20 minutes realized something was wrong. Nothing was changing. There were no paths, no obstacles, just the same curving path. Realizing he might be on a circle path, he took a shoe off and walked again. After about 5 minutes, he came across his shoe again. He was walking in circles. Putting his shoe on, he wondered how he was supposed to get out of it. He put a hand against the left wall, and then walked along, looking to see if there was any section of the wall that felt different. Feeling nothing, he did the same to the right wall. There was no difference he could feel. Just how was he supposed to get out of this loop? Obviously walking the same direction wasn't doing anything, so he turned around, walking the opposite way. He had no idea how to get out, but standing still wouldn't do anything either. Unless, was that the answer? A whirling sound came from behind him, and he looked over his shoulder, seeing steps appearing, descending down. Hesitantly, he went towards the steps, entering down. With an ear-piercing screech, he was thrust into darkness. Ears ringing, he stumbled forward through the dark. To escape, you have to click the correct answer to all riddles. You have 2 minutes to answer all 10 riddles correctly. If you fail, you will be sent back to the start. A screen lit up, and Izuku went towards it. Begin. What has 1 head, 1 foot, and 4 legs? Izuku read and saw several answers. And quickly he tapped the answer, a bed. It lit up green, and another riddle popped up. More and more he answered. The riddles were fairly simple, but he could feel the invisible timer ticking down. After what felt like forever, he answered the last riddle. "Congratulations, you passed with 37 seconds to spare." With no noise, the roof above him opened, and he felt a bit of vibrations as he was raised up. The piece of ground he was on blending seamlessly into the hallway. A long and straight hallway with each end having turns to the left and right. Seeing no difference, he went towards the right, and looking down both paths, he went right again. Only to yelp as something sharp pierced into his arm. Stumbling back, he heard a clanging against a wall. Hissing, as his arm started to throb, he looked down, finding an arrow sticking out of his arm. "Big lad, they aren't poisoned," Nezu's cackling voice called out over the speakers. Izuku's stomach twisted as he realized just how dangerous this maze truly was. It had been one thing seeing Vlad King do it, but it was another experiencing it for himself. He didn't know what sort of things to look for, to tell when or how traps would be activated. Looking, he saw that there were no more arrows being shot, and he couldn't even find where they had been shot from, just that on the floor there were arrows littering the floor after they had hit the wall. Izuku looked down at his arm, unsure of what to do with the arrow. Grimacing, he grabbed the arrow shaft and yanked it out. His arm burned in pain, and Izuku bit his tongue, tears pulling in his eyes. After taking a moment to catch his breath and let the burning die down, he looked at the tip of the arrow, and he saw that it wasn't even that sharp. He dropped it to the ground. Arm bleeding freely, he cupped his hand over the wound, trying to staunch the blood flow a bit. Glancing nervously at the wall, he took a couple steps back before dashing forward, going through the trapped area as fast as he could. The clanging of arrows hitting the wall behind him filled his ears. Turning around the corner, the clanging stopped, and so Izuku paused, deep, ragged breaths coming out. After catching his breath, he decided to continue on. Much more carefully he walked through the hallway, this time hearing a slight rumble and jumping back before the ground dropped from where he had been standing. Dashing forward, he leapt through the air, jumping over the pitfall. Another 10 minutes passed, with nothing but him walking and taking turns, and the entire building started to shake, throwing him off balance as he continued forward. A crash sounded from behind him, and Izuku took off, uncaring of what made the sound, just that he wanted to get away from whatever trap Nezu had activated now. He tripped and stumbled as he ran through the shaking hallway, thudding and banging sounding behind him. A minute later, and he turned a corner. The rumbling stopped. In front of him looked to be a giant, slightly see-through wall. It was blue and looked solid. On the normal hallway wall was a hook and an item. "You're almost at the end. All you have to do is make it through the Jello tunnel. The oxygen mask to your left will help you to breathe for a little bit, but you do have a limited supply. And, of course, goggles for you to see." Izuku bit his lip hesitantly, grabbing the oxygen mask before stepping towards the Jello tunnel. Wrapping the mask around his neck, but leaving it off for the moment, he pushed his hand against the wall, pushing it through. Pulling his hand back out, he shook off the Jello. All he could see through the Jello was a faint bit of light. He had no way of judging how long it was, but he didn't think it would be a few feet. A grinding sound from behind him caused him to spin around and see the end of the hallway start encroaching towards him. The principal wasn't going to give him time to dig his way through. Putting the goggles on and fastening the oxygen mask over his face, he activated it, dashing forward into the Jello, trying to make his way through. It was difficult. He didn't have any real grip, no way to pull himself forward. He tried different techniques, from trying to walk, to using his arms to try and shift the Jello, to try to shake his entire body in order to move through it. He couldn't really tell what the best way was, but looking over his shoulder did reveal he was making progress. He wasn't sure how long he spent in the Jello. There was no helpful clock to mark the time passing. Slowly the light seemed to get brighter, and he could make out objects on the other side. Izuku was also starting to get lightheaded, and almost numbly he realized the oxygen was running out. Carefully moderating his breathing, he pushed hard, shoving his way through the last bit of the Jello. The end was in sight. Bursting out of the other side, he yanked the oxygen mask off, collapsing onto the floor, gasping for air. "Good job. Push the button in the center, and you'll be complete with the tutorial level of the maze." Numbly, he crawled forward, using the pedestal the button was on to pull himself up and push the button. Wait, did Nezu just say tutorial level? The floor collapsed from underneath him, and he couldn't help it. He screamed. All right, listeners, this concludes Chapter 33 of Little Acts of Kindness. Chapter 34 will be up next. Hope you all are still enjoying, and as always, thank you so much for listening.